Check. Yeah.
Okay, everybody, we're going to carry on now with the first panel of today, Saturday. It's continuing the theme, so a logical flow. We're going to go on to the art of sponsorship activation. You'll be delighted to know this is going to be chaired highly professionally by our Andreea. So delighted Andreea will be doing this. And the people on the panel so far, who will tell you a little bit about their background anyway, but can I introduce Bruno, who's the co-founder of Overtime Sports Marketing. Can I introduce Doyin, Layade, who is the senior football and rugby executive at Wasserman. And Wim should need no introduction from yesterday. His wonderful presentation, but he is the founder of MCMC Biz, Senior Manager, E-Commerce and Digital Partnerships at Coca-Cola Partners. So an esteemed panel, and I'll leave you in Andrea's capable hands.
Well, thank you very much, Adrian. Well, you heard already the names of these lovely gentlemen that we have here, and I will ask each of them to make a presentation of their work and their expertise and tell us all about what they're doing now. So I'll start with Bruno.
Well, basically, hello everyone. Nice to be here for the first time in Bucharest, in Romania. Thank you for the invitation. Basically, I'm a sports freak who managed to build a sustainable model of living out of sports, traveling around and just enjoying my life. I have Overtime Sports Marketing. It's a company that works in Southeast Europe. We are focused on sponsorship activations and content creation and marketing strategies. So basically that's it. My background is marketing and media, and now for the last 4 years Overtime is successfully running.
So you know a lot about the East European market.
Well, I know something, so we will see how much during the talk.
Thank you. Wim, would you continue?
Yes, also happy to be here, first time in Romania and Bucharest as well. People that were here yesterday could already see a bit of my work for Bwin. So what I do is, on the one hand, I am the digital sales and marketing lead for Coca-Cola Benelux, so Belgium and Luxembourg, where we digitalize, or where my team digitalizes all of our partnerships. So that might be a theme park, it might be a cinema, that also might be RSC Anderlecht in Belgium, for example, or a Red Devils team, or a national football team, third in the World Cup. On the other hand, I started my own agency, MCMC, when I was at university in Belgium. So that was about 7-8 years ago. And we specialize in digital sports and entertainment marketing. So what that literally is we make the best websites you can have. We help them with digital marketing, Google AdWords, bannering, social media, content management, sponsorship consulting. And one of my biggest clients, as you could see yesterday, is Bwin Digital Entertainment, one of the leading sports betting providers in the world.
Well, thank you very much. Please, Doyin.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's my first time in Romania. I'm pleased to be here. I work for a company called Wasserman. I'm a player advisor, so I work with football players and rugby players in the English Premier League and abroad as well. I work with national federations in sports development, mainly in Nigeria, the World Federation, and I'm also a FIFA match agent. Some of the clients that we work with as an organization are people like Van Dijk at Liverpool, Steven Gerrard, they retired now, Vic Thomas at Chelsea, N'Golo Kante, and many more Premier League players. So that's a bit about myself.
Thank you very much. Well, one of the purposes of the day is to find suitable solution for Romania and for Eastern Europe, and we'll try to get all the key points that you can share with us from your expertise. Okay. I have a first question with you. What are the good principles or rules to abide in sponsorship activation? And I want to have examples from each of you, like a best practices example from your own experience. So, Doyin, would you like to start?
Yeah, of course. My view on this particular topic is a bit different to most. I believe for a brand to be effective with consumers, For example, if there's a brand coming to partner with Romania Football Federation, or the football team or the rugby team, I believe the most important thing is not just the brand objectives, but the brand falling and growing in love with the people of the country. What do I mean by this? So for the past few years, I worked with the Nigeria Football Federation. It is similar to Romania, trying to put an ecosystem together, build a system that works and grow in the industry. And when Nike came on board with Nigeria Football Federation some years ago, obviously Nike, as we know, is a very big brand, but Nigeria was in a place that wasn't as strong as it was in terms of sports and football. So in order for Nike to basically get their ROI in which they needed to get working with Nigeria, they had to go through a process of understanding the culture of Nigeria, the people of Nigeria, because the team is made up of Nigerians. So the team is Nigerian football team, but it's a team for the people of Nigeria. So in order for the team to be interested, for the people of Nigeria to be interested in buying Nike clothing, Nike had to connect with the people. And that took a process of time. It takes a brand, it takes patience from a brand perspective for this to be achieved in activation. But what Nike did that was good while working with them was that they took about 2-3 years to really integrate themselves into the culture of Nigeria. And this became fruitful coming to the World Cup this year, where we saw that Nigerian jerseys sold out in a matter of 2 days. Sold out in London in a matter of 24 hours, sold out in Australia, sold out in France, sold out in many nations that Nike couldn't supply any more kit to any stores. How did this happen was that Nike basically implemented the culture of the people in the activation, which was Nigeria, we like bright colors. We're very loud. We like bright colors. We like attention. We like the personality is very loud. So Nike brought this in the activation of the kit for the Nigerian World Cup kit that sold out. Nike brought this into the kit, and when it comes to the activation of them releasing the kit, they brought in very loud personalities in Nigeria, some of the main musicians in Nigeria into the activation, some of the main names in Nigeria in activation. And it was very fruitful because they sold out. Now Nigeria can demand more money revenue-wise, which was obviously the end goal. But the first main thing was the brand connecting with the people, growing in love with the people, and then integrating the understanding of the culture and of the people into their brand of what they were producing for that nation and into that activation of what they were doing with the country, if that makes sense. And I believe for Romania, this could be helpful in that the brands that are coming on board are not just only looking for a short-term gain or a short-term saying what we're going to make in the next 1 year if we come on board, but really paying attention to the activation system. Or this happens if the brand comes on board with and are intentional about growing in love with the culture of Romania and partnering and knowing that it's a journey that in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, this will pay dividends, this will become fruitful, or is a journey and it's not a short-term goal. And the activation, they must be intentional by the activation with the people and connecting with the people of Romania and also the teams.
Well, I'm very happy that you mentioned this thing about culture, because it's important to know that each and every country has its own specific things that you have to take into consideration, so you cannot come just with your know-how and implement it the way you did it in, different other countries. And for us, as Romanians, it's also important to be proud of our specific things and try to do it, to make a fruitful mix and do it our way. And of course, that's even more creative, and we have personalized content. Thank you very much. Wim?
Yeah, I heard you say the word people a lot, and I absolutely like that. What I like about sponsorship activation, or what I think is a need, is that people are involved. And with people, I don't mean supermodels or actors or really expensive agencies. A former client of mine working at Samsung, he once told me, my budget is so big that I basically have a marketing shotgun, and when I shoot, I always hit something, so it doesn't matter what I do. That was at an awards stage, so it's quite arrogant, but in the end he was right. He had so much money, it didn't matter, he could do what he wanted. I know for a lot of countries, or brands, this isn't the case. I come from the Belgian landscape. We also don't have these huge budgets most of the times. And what I absolutely like about successful sponsorship activation is when the people involved are your consumers, are your fans, are your audiences. I showed a few examples yesterday, like what we did with Real Madrid or Inter Milan, that we include our fans, our customers, that you also see the Real Madrid stars and football players, but in the same frame, in the same video, you see our clients kicking the ball or giving that interview. And two sponsorship activations that I use every year to my students in Belgium, which I absolutely adore, is MasterCard in Turkey, and I'll provide the links on YouTube to the organization, which you can look it up yourself. Is MasterCard Turkey. They had these guys just playing a little football match, like we all have done at some point, kicking the ball around just after work, after school, and all of a sudden you see this crowd shouting. The Champions League hymn starts to play. Collina, the world-famous Italian referee, comes onto the pitch, and all these guys, I still get goosebumps while I'm telling you this. They had the time of their life just playing that little football match, and all of a sudden they had this Champions League premium experience, even though you could see from some of the guys' tummy that these weren't real professional players. But this is something that they'll tell their children, their grandchildren. They met with Collina, they met with the MasterCard professionalism. And another one in this range is the Heineken Italy prank. If you type it in YouTube, Heineken prank Italy, you probably find it. It's also so amazing. What they did there is, there was the Champions League final. I believe it was Real Madrid versus AC Milan, so very important to Italians. And they did this huge prank. A lot of journalists involved, lots of people involved. And there were girlfriends and wives telling their husbands, no, sorry, you cannot watch the match. We have tickets to the opera. You had students, and their professor told them, no, sorry, you cannot watch the game tonight. This is an exam question. You need to go to the opera, or to the concert, to the orchestra, or you're done for the exam. So everyone was like, man, you got to be kidding me. But they all went, and you could see the faces. They hated this. There was this orchestra playing. It was beautiful, but it's not what you want to do when there's Real Madrid AC Milan on television when you're a fan. And they were bored, they hated it, they were really getting angry. Even some of them were like poking their girlfriend, like, I don't love you anymore. But in the end, the orchestra started playing the amazing Champions League hymn, and once again I get goosebumps. And all of a sudden they dropped the screen down and they could watch the game on a big screen. So they were involved in the prank, and that's once again something they will never forget. And this video got like tens of millions of views, and the PR they got with this was unaffordable. Perhaps for Heineken this is affordable either way, but you know what I mean. Even a small brand can do amazing stuff when they include their fans.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of the Heineken campaigns. So basically, every person that you have contact with in the process can be a co-creator of value. Thank you. Please, Bruno.
Well, if you think that the budgets in Belgium are small, you should come to Eastern Europe. I mean, when I was coming to Bucharest, I was always thinking, okay, what can we share that the people here can, you know, just connect with, and that they can leave tomorrow and say, okay, now I can implement this and that in my own work, and this is something that I can relate to. So in Croatia, we work with Croatian champions in basketball, Cedevita, and we did the Valentine's Day free hugs. So we took two major names out of the team, and we made them posters with the free hugs written on it, and we took a candid camera, and we went to the center of the city, and they were basically just walking around and giving hugs. And then we did a video out of it, and then we used that to promote the club, because we wanted to show the emotion, you know, because the club is not the brand, it's not the name, it's the players, it's the characters. You want to show what do you have inside of the team, you know, and that's a really important message. But what I wanted to say at first is that sponsorship activation starts as a value. It should be a value for the fans, for the consumers. So not to think about the sponsorship activations from the sponsor's perspective, but from the fans' perspective. It's really important because then when you're giving value, then you will receive the most important thing, and that's attention. So the most important thing in our lives is 86,400. That's the number of seconds that we have in one day. So that's the only resource that we have that can't be scaled. So it can't grow. That's what we have. We have 24 hours. So today's main currency in marketing is attention. So if you can add value and just provide something new and some experience, then you will have good and positive motivation.
Thank you. Doyin, please tell me, what are the differences between the world of football and between the world of rugby? And how do you deal with it? How do you get partnerships? Is there any specificity between them?
It's a very good question. It's a very, very good question. For example, I work with footballers in the Premier League, and I also have footballers in the English Premier League as well, who play for England. I mean, working players in the English Premier League who play for England. And what the challenge I've found, and we found as a company, is that we manage some of the biggest rugby players in England. However, the brands are not so forthcoming because they're not as attractive. Physically, perhaps they don't attract footballers to naturally to the mass audience. And because rugby's got a very conservative way about it in England, it's very reserved. The players are not as perhaps outspoken as the footballers. So there's a few challenges and reasons why perhaps rugby players are not as attractive to brands. So what we've had to do is we have to be very creative. So there's an England player, for example. I'll give an example. One of my players, an England player, Bruno, is known because he likes to sleep in a lot, right? So I give you a story. So one day they were traveling to Australia to play against Australia, and the fitness coach or someone said to them, "Don't sleep on this flight because it will affect your sleeping pattern when you arrive in Australia." They get on the plane. 10 minutes later, is the sleep right? So, well, that's great for us because we now use the opportunity to reach out to the brands. Straight went to, there's a company called Dreams. It's a bedding company, mattress company, right? We sold it to Dreams about how I was to sleep. Naturally, it was to connect with fans, people, consumers who like to sleep because people know it's all over YouTube. I mean, it runs off. Lots of reviews on YouTube about him sleeping, players joking about him sleeping a lot on YouTube and when they're on camp. So we're able to capitalize on our players' personalities, that makes sense, to bring in revenue. So also for the players as well, and also for the consumers, it becomes more of a natural relationship with the brand and with the consumers. So it goes naturally. It's not like the player is striving or is not himself when it comes to activation and being with the consumers, when it comes to going to events or wherever the brand chooses to use it. It's just literally being his own personality and his own character. We're able to utilize that to attract the right brands for himself as a natural fit for himself. So yeah, that's one of the ways in which we kind of tackle the issue of lack of interest in sponsorship for the athletes in rugby. Whereas in football, the brands are there, but it depends also on the nationality of the athlete. We have players who will play for top teams in England, but the brands in Europe or in England are not as forthcoming because they might be of African descent or be of South American descent. Therefore, for the brand, the ROI is not as attractive for them. So once again, we have to be very creative in how we go about that and apply. Just do your homework basically, and do your work as a good advisor. So that's one of the ways. But to answer your question, I say is literally seeing what you have, who you have, seeing their unique attributes. Another example I'll give you is another rugby player as well. So for himself, he has, I'm not sure if you know Weetabix, the cereal Weetabix, is that in Romania? Weetabix is like a cornflakes. Yeah. Or he eats basically a large amount of Weetabix. and to himself, he thinks it's normal to eat a large amount of Weetabix. So we're able to capitalize on his personality again and get Weetabix on board to come on board and sponsor it, because for him again, it's a natural fare. He's not striving. He's able to relate to people out there who eat a large amount of breakfast, a large amount of Weetabix. So yes, and then when it comes to the activation of that, I get the message out there as well. Because of the natural fit, we use what we call so we have a thing called laundry service, where players can actually use their mobile phones as a marketing tool, for example, as activation tool. So it's like, as he's having breakfast, he could use his phone, just on the joint having breakfast, about my breakfast, with a big bowl. So it's just connecting with the fans in a natural way. So it's not like it doesn't have to be a big money campaign for the activation. It could just be the athlete being proactive and just, basically sharing his journey to having a breakfast with his consumers out there who are following. So, yeah.
And you address the brands that fit the shape.
Right, basically.
Bruno, I want to ask you about handball, because we have people involved in handball here. Tell me how difficult you think it is to get sponsorships, to activate sponsorships for handball. What's different from basketball or either from football?
Well, it's different all over the place. So handball is interesting because there is a great passion, I know, in Romania, also is in Croatia, and that can be used. Because we worked, for example, with the broadcaster of the World Championship in Qatar, and we used ex-handball legends, and we did content with them, and then used them as an ambassadors. So in handball, there are big names that are coming from Romania that can be used in terms of spreading the news, of reaching their network. In terms of sponsors, there's always a question of matching values. So I was just telling the story. We were for one of the handball clubs in Croatia. We were on a sponsorship meeting, and I asked them, "Okay, what's your vision?" And they were like, "To make money." And I was like, "Okay, but you know the vision of the company?" "No, to make money." I was like, "Okay, thank you." Like, that was us. Because if there is no long-term partnership, if there is no long-term story, then it won't do. It just won't do. You will get, I don't know, 50,000 euros, 10,000 euros, it doesn't really matter, but it just won't do. In handball, what is really interesting is that the athletes are more, let's say, normal, down to earth. You know, footballers can often be, you know, I'm a celebrity kind of guy. With handball players, you could do a lot of stuff. You could do activations that footballers or basketball players wouldn't do. So think in terms of out-of-the-box thinking, and just, you know, approach that won't make football club happy, but your handball club could be happy with it.
Thank you very much. I go to the next question. What do you do to work as good as possible with shareholders and stakeholders? Which are the difficulties of the process, and what are the solutions that work most of the time? And I want examples from the activity, and I want to start with him.
I'm not sure that I understood the question entirely. But...
Well, I was thinking what you said yesterday, from moving from one big brand to another and to the direct competitor. And which were your difficulties? I mean, also from the public perception, from the media, from other partners of the clubs that you work with.
Okay, I remember the question. Well, as I said, it's not about when you're a partner, when you're a sponsor somewhere, it's not just about being a fan. Of course, most of the people in the business are at some point fans of a certain sport or team, but at that point it's important that you stay professional and that you, in the end, that you do business with them, that you're not like a fan that is just on a lucky seat somewhere. We did change with Bwin from one club to a rivalry other club, like from AC Milan to Inter Milan, or from Real Madrid to Atletico Madrid. But I do think that most fans will appreciate or see that we also go about this in a very professional manner, and that we indeed were at some point at their biggest rival, which they hate and which they hate the supporters of. But in the end, we created value for both, for example, Real as Atletico Madrid. It's of course also about what we paid them, but we also created added value for their fans. At some point, some of their fans that were clients at Bwin were able to train with their heroes, with the stars. We did that same activation for Atletico, so I think it's about staying professional at all times and not have your own personal preferences shine through when you do negotiations or when you do activations on site.
But do you think it worked well because of the specific of the brand? Maybe if it's another type of brand that gets more connected to the values of the team or to the identity of the club, do you think would be the same? I mean, the perception would be, well, you are professional, you can switch, doesn't matter. Do you think it works like this? Different sector?
I think that it's applicable to several sectors, because you have to maintain the general marketing rules that you use. When changing a team or when changing a big brand, and as I said, you stay professional, I think that it's something that can be applied over several industries. And when you created that emotional connection with a certain fan base, that is essentially what you wanted to do. I just think that you need to take these best practices, and copy-paste is probably not the right word, but reuse them, alter them to fit a new fan base. And I think that can be done for every brand a club can partner with, or every sector.
I'm not a fan of reusing stuff, so I know where I come from and I know what you mean, but I believe that, for example, Real Madrid and Atletico fans are completely different kind of target groups, because Real Madrid is more king style, luxurious, that kind of style, right, Carlos? Yeah, and we're both the Real fans, so that's fine. And Atletico fans are more like, we are hard-working worker, kind of like blue-collar type of fans. So I know that there are some things that could work in both cases, but I think that the approach would be better if maybe in some different angles, let's say.
I agree.
If I may please answer that. Coming from a different perspective of working with countries rather than clubs, one challenge that I found is that I went to a country with, that I was advising at that point with a sponsorship of an airline from a different country. So it was like, for example, if I'm advising Romania Airline and I come to you, I'm in Romania Federation, and I come to Romania and say, listen, Saudi Airline wants to sponsor Romanian football team as the major airline. Now, the vice president that I was speaking to, he was very reluctant because of these political things that was happening between the two nations. So, from a national perspective, switching brands switching from one place to another can be a challenge because it's then more than just clubs. Because you're dealing with on a national level now, because whoever is attached to the national team, that can be a challenge now and again when it comes to the name of another country being a major airline for a partner for another country, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I can't imagine in Eastern Europe to get a sponsorship from, let's say, Bulgaria to Croatia. I mean, there is so little money in Bulgaria, and they would be hanged out there, just for saying, wait, you went to Croatia and you sponsor, I don't know, handball club, and you saw value in there and you didn't sponsor someone from Sofia. So it's a challenge here, and I don't like to be politically correct, so I'm really open. Why is that? Because most of the sponsorship in Eastern Europe is done by, oh, I know this politician, or you will give it to me. But that's not sustainable. And I think one of the major points that we want to make here at SBC is that sports industry and sports club organizations need to be sustainable. We have to find that kind of model. Before it was mentioned that it's normal in Eastern Europe that some club is European champion and then 2 years later that club doesn't exist anymore. And that should be unbelievable. We should put it in those terms. And it's a process. It's called transition and change because it has to hurt. But now it's time to hurt the system also, not only the clubs and organizations. So it's interesting, and I think that only this kind of initiatives and just positive force and energy can overturn things in that way.
What do you think we can do to change the mindset from seeing sponsorship as, like a charity action and, well, you talk so much and have this money and do your project. How can we change this perspective in the Eastern European part and make the owner of the brands understand what incredible value they can get in partnering with us? Please, Doyin.
Well, that's a very good question. I would say generational thinking, that there will be brands, the right brands will like the idea of generational thinking. What do I mean? I mean the right brands that will be coming on board to partner with people in Eastern Europe, with nations in Eastern Europe, if the intentions are right and it's not just a matter of we want a short-time return, and if they have the right view, then they will think generationally and know that if we can build for the next 4 years, we will capture people for the next 12 years. Because not only are we getting generation now, but we get generations after. The return, therefore, for them on investment, so it's more than just, we're going to waste, but are we going to give out 6 million over the next 4 years, and then wait 10 years to get what we want now, is that because this is where things like activation comes in, this is where things like fan experience comes in, this is where things like fan engagement comes in, this is where things like brand strength, knowledge comes in. So more than just a financial return, an immediate financial return, they are actually getting increase of value that can be measured as well in several different areas that will then in turn, in maybe 4, 5, 6 years time, then lead to a massive return on investment. I made the example of Nike and Nigeria earlier. When Nike was sponsoring Nigeria 3, 4 years ago, I can tell you that the return on investment for Nike will be next to nothing. So they won't be getting much back in return. It will just be sponsoring Nigeria because Nigerians weren't wearing the Nike jersey from Nigeria back then that much. So it will be a matter of Nike was saying, okay, 4 years time, if we can do this right, in 4 years time we can make back our money basically and more and attach us to the Nigerian markets, which is what's happened now after the World Cup. After the World Cup with the Nike, Nigerian Nike selling out in how many countries in a matter of days, they've more than made back the money that they've invested in Nigerian football. And now Nigerians not only are attached to the brand, but Nike have created something that I believe will have a lasting impression with Nigerians and beyond Nigeria for years to come because of what they've achieved by that. They've connected with the culture already. They've built a system that the people can relate to because it's getting to a point now where people are not just after the big names like Rolls-Royce, Adidas, name it. People are now wanting that connection with the purchase. So if brands can have this understanding that actually in the next 2, 3 years, if you can build something that's more than just a financial return, if you can build a culture and a connection that's genuine, that relates to the people, to the consumers, that therefore will last us for the next 10, 12 years, and at least the next generations to come, and therefore we will start getting financial returns in the near future, but have that patience, that understanding, to have a strategy and stick to that strategy, and that takes a very strong personality from the brand's perspective to do so.
Thank you. William, please.
Yeah, I think the big difference between the two is on one hand sponsorship activation and on the other hand sponsorship research and evaluation. So of course, as when you're a club or an asset, whatever league, and you're in search of sponsorship, it's interesting to see someone come in with a big bag of money. That helps. What is even more interesting is to see someone come in with perhaps a little, that the bag is a little bit more tiny, or still a bag of money, but also comes in with know-how and expertise on sponsorship activation. This will not only secure your financial challenges because you have that bag of money, but it will also help you, as Doyin said, make that connection with the fans, really create value for the team or the league where you're sponsoring. And this is not done when someone like a billionaire comes in or a politician with lots of money. This is almost always poorly activated because they don't care. They want their name somewhere. They want to drink champagne in the business seats because it's cool and because it's to make their own deals. And on the second hand, then, when you do this and you bring in objective sponsorship research and evaluation, this will allow you that when this sponsor goes away, or when they cut budgets, or when something happens, you have a great case to put in your sales deck and to go to other sponsors and say, this is what we created for, let's say, Bwin at Real. We went away. They can go to another betting partner, a competitor of ours, and use our case. That's no problem. If they show what they could create together, the one brand, the one business, and the club or the league, it's doing your homework when you go into sales. I often, from my Bwin perspective, I often get people saying, we're looking for money, we're looking for a sponsor, and then I ask more about it. Yes, we need money for a new gym, we need to pay this huge expensive player, so we need your money, we really need your partnership. That's not what I want to hear. I couldn't care less about that. Even if it's my favorite team, I shouldn't care, basically. If they come in with a great activation plan and they tell me, and they put in a case from another sponsor that they've proven that they can do this with some objective data, research, analysis I can take to my CEO or decision maker, I think you can come to an agreement, a financially interesting agreement, in a really short period of time.
Thank you.
I think it goes both ways. One is towards the institutions that we need to educate and talk, and as you have mentioned, treat them as animals who are really afraid, afraid of life, and then you first go and say, I won't kill you, we can talk, I'm a human being, we're on the same page, let's talk and see what synergy effects could we have together. But on the other hand, it's really important also for people in sports industry to understand what's their industry. People, especially young generations, are not anymore interested in only watching 40 minutes of basketball or 60 minutes of handball or 90 minutes of football. It's an entertainment business. So you cope with cinema, you cope with Netflix, you cope with drinking in a pub. So these are your enemies, let's say. Because when I'm going out on a Friday night, then I'm choosing between the Cluj game, between the cinema, and between going out and getting drunk with my friends. So, no, but it's really, you don't drink? Just to make sure they are alive. So that's really important to know, because then the approach is completely different. Yesterday was the talk about the NBA in London. I was there on the global game 2 years ago. The DJ plays the music during the match. So we had a problem in Adriatic League because there is a rule that you must stop all the music when the play starts. And then we said, okay, we will pay the fines just to have the entertainment moment. It's ridiculous, but that's the moment of Eastern European sport. So we have to pay fine to entertain people. And that's the situation.
But the players, what do they get to say?
When you talk to them off the record, they will say, oh yeah, just put my song and I will just, dunk it or score an amazing goal or whatever. When you ask them on the record, they're like, oh, well, whatever the federation says. But my point is, we have to understand that sports is changing. that kids like esports better than football or handball or basketball, and that we have to find out how we can, just make sure that that kind of sports live onwards. Because, I mean, our friends were at Dinamo Bucharest match last night, and there was like, what, 1,000 people at its best. That's not a good crowd, because people want to see something better. They don't want to see 22 guys running for the ball. I mean, that's the essential, that's the core, but we have to build a product on that.
Yeah, you talked already about my new question, that was how we make people understand, in this part of Europe especially, that sport is no longer an activity that you run for and you give your life for, and it's just a part of a system that it's called entertainment. And of course, behind the entertainment, it has to be also an engagement, and the publics have to feel engaged, to be connected with you as a brand, with you as a team, as a venue, and so on. And my idea is that we have to consider more investing also in the social aspect and in the community. And maybe you can help us a little bit with some ideas how we can do that, and maybe some examples that you know very well that work.
Myself? I'd say we both made very interesting points. I think we've looked at things from a brand standpoint for quite a bit as well, but I think it's good that the federations, the clubs, and even the community organizations understand that at times they have to aim to over-deliver in their partnership works. What do I mean? I was speaking to a federation of recent, and I said about the empty stadiums. I said about the empty stadiums, and he said, oh, the people are lazy, they won't come to the stadium. I'm thinking, it's not people that are lazy. You have to make more effort to engage your fans. That means it's not the people. That means the people in the authority, in the organization, are not doing enough to engage the fans to get them into the stadium. That's the challenge. The challenge is not the people are lazy. The challenge is that you guys have not done things quite as you should have. So for things to change, people first of all have to change. First of all, it's like if you're driving a car, for the speed to change, you have to change how much pressure you're putting on it. For direction to change, you have to change the way you're thinking. So I'm going to go left now. So for things to change, first of all, the people's mentality have to change. I'm talking about some of the countries I've worked with. How do we engage the people in the community, and what are the ideas? You have to know, as you all know, you have to know your audience. You have to know the people you're working with. And it's no longer about taking things out there and saying, oh, they should like our idea about how we want to work with the community, or as mentioned earlier, about obviously engaging the people. It's not about going to the people and saying, oh, what can we create to engage the people in this community? It's about going out to the people and getting a full understanding of the different demographics and saying, okay, how can we appeal to these people? What is their needs? And how can we take what we have and our resources and engage and supply these people with these needs in this community? But once again, that takes a group of people who have a real sense of understanding that is not just about a 90 minutes game of football that we need to win. It's not just a matter of, oh, we need to get a sponsor because we just need a sponsor. It takes a real sense of a group of people who have the understanding, the capability, the competence of understanding that, okay, listen, the community is our audience. The community is what makes this club. The community is what we're going to make 90 minutes what 90 minutes is. So therefore, you have to go out to the community and get a real, like I said before, just get a real understanding of the demographics of the people you're dealing with, of their needs, of their wants, and then you then tailor certain activities that would engage those people out there, and not bring them to you, or you go out there to the community and deliver what you need to deliver. And it doesn't always have to cost much.
But what I saw is at Coca-Cola, when optimizing, when they also talked about revenue streams in stadiums, empty stadiums, the fan experience, etc., all these buzzwords, but it sometimes comes down to really simple things. What we heard was with Coca-Cola, we are losing sales, we are losing turnover with women. And we asked us why. And that was because these women said, in the stadium, the toilets are dirty, so I'm not going to drink another Coca-Cola because then I have to go to the bathroom. This is something really simple, but there are other simple things that we can improve, like good signage to the stadium, making sure that people are aware of the traffic flows and that they get to the stadium without being frustrated, that they don't have to stand in the rain. And it's not just about having Justin Bieber during halftime, it's about having clean toilets and really, for example, people with children don't go to. I remember that my mother didn't want me to go to Belgian football with my dad because she was afraid I would get in like a fight or whatever. Maybe this is something that clubs can react to by providing a place for your child to stay during the match, or providing a corner in the stadium that is only for families. These are really simple things that every sport, every club, whatever the level, can achieve and can improve.
Yes, there are cities and teams that do that, and there are stadiums with family-friendly corners and facilities. And this is about data collections, and you have to get all the data and then research through it and see the standings, what matters most and what the people expect most from you, because this is the only way you can improve. So you cannot say, okay, the people were not happy with our toilets, but that's our toilets, and we do nothing about it. You know for sure that the next time you take into consideration to put personnel who takes care of the toilets during the games and so on. But it's important to get the right data and use it in a good way for you and also for your public. Please.
I was thinking about if you would come to the military guy in Stelwa and said you should fix your toilets and people will come. He would throw you out in like 3 minutes. Well, but I love the case. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's true from the first hand. But I think that it's important for young people here to understand that you can make a change. You know, don't think about what can't be done. Think about what could be done. You know, be a dreamer, because your generation is the generation that can make a difference. And I think that that's really important. I mean, I'm not for, you know, clashes and fights, but I don't believe also on the pat on the back, because the pat on the back doesn't move you forward. It just, you know, stand still. What I think about the community, I think that the club has to think first, why do we have a club? What's our purpose? And in Cedevita, we did find out that there are a number of kids with Down syndrome in the neighborhoods of the club, and they don't have any facilities where they can do trainings. So we offer them a couple of hours during the week, and we have Down 21, it's called the program, and now it's one of the best EuroLeague programs of CSR, of social responsibility. And you can do so much without any cost or with a real low cost, because you can use your resources just to make other people's lives better. And that's what now the sports organization can do.
What you say now makes me think about the very strong values that you have to set from the very beginning. You have to know exactly what your DNA, what your values are, and then everything will follow. But when you don't have this set up very well, then you will do like this, and you will not understand why the people are not happy.
Yeah, and I mean, it's natural for 90% of the clubs not to have the DNA, because we come from the period in communism when there was just an ordinary thing to have a club, you know, but there wasn't a question about the purpose or DNA. I mean, what are we talking about, you know? And now it's completely different playground. The rules are totally different. I mean, the cinemas have changed in 40 years, like space shuttles. and the stadium stayed the same. So they are now worse than 40 years before. So we have to think, I think, in those terms that you mentioned.
Yeah, but that thing with the stadiums, also what happens here, is because the people that are in charge, the institution, the public institutions that are in charge, they don't look forward, they don't look to the trends in the markets. So then they still believe that a stadium is just a place where twice a month, because it's 2 games away, 2 games at home, you play a football game, and that's not the case anymore. The stadiums that are built nowadays and the stadiums from the developed areas, they are used 24 hours per 7 because it's much more beyond the game that lasts 2 hours there. I have no more questions, but we are really eager to hear your questions.
Come on, let's hear the questions, the thoughts. Let's speak.
We need a microphone?
I heard you can win a Fitbit if you get good questions out there. So.
I have a question.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. That was a really nice panel. And I have a question to Doyin. Because you speak about a little bit about players and everything what is happening in sport is because some people want to be players, want to work really hard, training every day, 2 times, 3 times, I don't know, analysis and so on, prepare to be good on the field or to play football, handball, I don't know what, basketball and so on. Actually, my question was from one side as a player, what they have to do to use maximum from the image to be used also after the career. So you know that the career, it's as a performance, is very short, and of course, if you can speak from size not as a football players, because they really receive very good money and they are not our, we want to be as them, but they are not the other sports, it's not in this level, so if you can give us some.
Yeah, if you look at in the entire marketing mix, for example, at Coca-Cola, we see that a lot of our traditional touch points are having a hard time reaching their goals, reaching the audience. TV is going down because of Netflix, etc. Radio is going down because of Spotify, etc. So it's very hard to reach the right audience and really make an impact. And I think we want to be, as a brand, where the attention of our consumers are. And I think sports has always been and will always be, even more now that other touch points are getting weaker, a very strong platform for us. So these players or these athletes, and even after their career, can be for us a very interesting leverage, a very interesting platform to use to reach the people that we want, especially people that are not used to watching television after school or work anymore, like perhaps we have done when we were little. They are just watching their little screen all the time, or their iPad, and they don't have that same media behavior anymore. So we want to be where their attention and eyes are, and that is often where their favorite entertainment is. Not necessarily sport, it's true what he said, they have to compete with Netflix, Spotify, drinking. But in the end, sports will always be very important. And it doesn't need to be sports, it can also be consumed out of home, in home. So it's a very interesting platform for us as a brand, seeing the changing media mix. Of course, the values of that player have to correspond with our values. I think what Nike did was amazing, using controversy to a level that is okay, not like Donald Trump does, but on a level that creates PR, creates attention without going a step too far. It's really interesting. It's bold, but it's not too extreme. But I think that can be different for every brand and be interesting in several sports, depending on your own brand DNA. And even within Coca-Cola, we have such a broad product range. We have, of course, the products that you know, but we have new teas, and we're going for bio and fair trade stuff. then we need different influencers then. So we might have also a broad range of sports athletes, different sports that we want to be in. So if that answers your question.
About the players and their careers, I think that it's important for players to understand that their job is not anymore to go to trainings and to play matches, but they are walking brands. And if they want to do something with their image, you need to work on that, and they need to work on that. And I mean, it's hard because when they're young, when they're 22, then they don't think about it. They are all about, look, I'm so beautiful, look at my muscles, hey lady, how you doing? And in that position, they have to think about their character, what they want to show, what's really important. And as we mentioned, the Nike controversial ad or the whole campaign, I think that in Eastern Europe there is so much topics that we talk about off the record, but we don't want to talk it on the record. And the athlete who uses his or her power to talk about it, not in an offensive way so they can get into problems, but into a true way of just pointing out what's wrong in the society and what can make a difference, then they will be remembered. And then, I don't know, some private school or some brand will say, oh yeah, I remember that's his or her character. We can use that in our campaign, or they can become our ambassador, or we are interested in educating them and having them as a part of our team.
Thank you, this is a voice.
In addition to what you've said from an advisor's point of view, working with players, the guy from being engaged mentioned Bayo Akinfenwa, who's a client of ours as well. Now, with Bayo, not every athlete perhaps has the physical attraction that brands want, as you mentioned earlier. But I think it's often quite important to sit down with your advisors, people that you work with, and you're able to highlight your character, your personality, your interest, things you're passionate about, whether that be politics, or whether that be whatever it may be in business, or whether that be journalism, or whatever it may be, and you start to build a strategy about how you can go into that industry and do what you want to do. Perhaps not immediately, but in maybe 5 to 10 years' time. If that makes sense, start to do what we call a trade marketing effect of yourself, almost, right? So, an example of Bayo was that we looked at Bayo. He's not a top footballer. He's not independent. He's not a championship. But he's got a very exuberant, he's got a very vibrant personality, and it's very big for a footballer. So we're able to utilize that and create a strategy to make it, to monetize that almost, right? But that didn't come immediately. That came with a trade marketing effect of aligning with the right radio station where to get his voice out there, his personality out there, people get to know him as a person. And obviously, I also have another client, Shoni Aluko, who works in Fifth Pro. The guy is very intellectual. He reads 20 books a year maybe. He's very intellectual, but we're able to project his personality and put him on different platforms such as Fifth Pro, and now he's working with Fifth Pro and other organizations that matches his character and his personality. So it's very important that as an athlete, you know what you're passionate about, you know your character, you know what drives you outside of your sport as well, whether that's in the government, in community, in different areas, and then you're able to work with someone or create a strategy that will position you in a place where you can amplify the ideas or the passion you have for that certain area.
If I can add something in very simple words, would be that a sport player who thinks he wants to have a career to continue in sport in a different department when he's over with his performance, then he has to prepare in time, maybe 1 year, 2 years ahead, and then of course they need an endorser. And look at the nice examples of Ana Maria Brenza and Cristina Nagu, what happened recently, and I think all these brands that finally are visible in the market, because I was, thinking, when will I see them in commercial campaigns and at the place that they belong? I think you have to stay together. The people from sport, the professional people from sport. You have to stay together and help each other and endorse each other, and I think it's a good way to create a strong voice. Do we have other questions? Please.
Hi, I have a question for Bruno. You spoke about bad partnership, bad sponsorship from politicians. And let's face it, in Romania, maybe 90+% from professional sport is from politicians. Did you ever encounter a good activation of this type of sponsorship?
From the politician sponsorship?
Politician, municipalities, and so on.
Well, we did. The Croatian electrical company, that's a state-owned company. They have a good marketing team that wants to do a real work, you know, not just to give a couple of millions of euros or whatever in sports. And we did great things together. For example, they did a TV campaign for gender equality in sports. It's a really big topic now in Eastern Europe because the women's sport is, I don't know why, but just put it on a second level. I know that there is no such big interest for women's sports in terms of TV ratings or public interest, but it has to develop. You know, if Western Europe can do it, then it's possible. So yeah, we encountered with the state-owned or municipalities sponsorship, but it's really rare. So I would say it's more than 90% in the whole Eastern Europe.
Yeah, because I encountered the opposite. Oh, you are state-owned club. We don't work with. We don't want to work with. So maybe we can mask or embrace it. I'm not sure about how we can do it right now, but I think it's a big problem right now.
Well, what I've seen that works is that when people are positive and they, you know, just enter the meeting with the positive energy and just show that they are not some corrupt politician, or even if they work in state-owned clubs, that they show, hey, we want to do a real work, then it's possible, but it's really hard, yeah. So I definitely know what you're talking about.
Okay, thanks.
Well, we ran out of time. Do we have a last question, or we end up here? Yes, please.
Do you have any tips and tricks on how to get your sponsors to invest more money on activation? And related to this, do you talk with the sponsors about the activation plan and maybe put it in the contract with the clubs or federations or wherever, whenever?
I think you just answered your own question.
For all of them? Yeah.
Basically, they all have consultancy experience.
Like I said, I think you just answered your own question in regards to getting the sponsors to invest more money into the activations, contractual. And when it comes to dealing from the initial stages in the contracts, negotiation, the talks, you state clearly about activation side of things. You have clarity on the activation, so it's not just the word that you throw in for contractual sake. You have clarity, you have time periods, you have potential ROIs, you have, if that makes sense, so you also come with a justification for the demands you have on the finances for activation. So it's not just something that the brand sees as an extra payment for what they don't want. When they're able to get a visual, again, understanding on, okay, this activation is for this purpose at this period of time, and it's going to be done in these specific ways, then I think you have a very strong case to demand more financially from brands for activation. Yes.
And I think putting the data under the nose might help. Again, I worked for research companies for 6 years in sports. You can either show them, let's half of the season do nothing, just put that logo on somewhere and let's see what happens, measure soft KPIs, measure media visibility, and then again activate, do cool stuff, and do a survey on the fans, do a national-wide survey, and see whether your brand has grown more when you did nothing or when you did something, and then compare that. Maybe the activation budget was then too high or not high enough, but this way you can optimize with data, with research, objectively measured, not some data from some marketing guy in the team. I can do that as well, but I think data says it all, and if they don't believe that this will help, then perhaps it's not the right sponsor to work with at that point. And I know it's hard to turn down money, but you'll be better off in the long run to work with a sponsor that perhaps lowers the fee a bit, but invests in activation, so your club gets the attention, your league or whatever you stand for, and this will make your work easier in the long run. It's easy taking the money up front and then doing nothing, but suppose that second sales meeting, you have nothing to show for it. You're just looking for that bag of money again.
What we do is clearly state visually that this is the amount that is necessary for the sponsorship, and then this is the amount necessary for the activations. And you definitely need to go with clear activation plan, or at least idea, so they can get, just a perspective of your vision and where do you want to take the team. For example, in Western Europe, the stats are €1 per sponsorship is €1 per sponsorship activation. In Southeast Europe, there is a stat that there is €1 for sponsorship, 10 cents, so 0.1 euros for activation. So it's really important for us to talk to sponsors. Hey, sponsorship money is only the ticket for you to get in. Then we talk about the activities and what we do. And then the data and everything that you can show that you can relate to them. In that moment, it's really important to think in their terms, not from your perspective, but from their perspective. To think, what do they do outside of sports? How do they measure that? How can we compare that with our things that we do? So definitely clear plan, visualize, we need €100 for this and €50 for that, and that's combined €150. And then invest in your negotiation skills, because then you can come to them with the self-respect, and confidence, and then it won't sound like it's a charity, like, oh, we need, like, if you could give us, maybe you see like 50,000 something. And they said, no, we have 20, and you say, yes, we got 20. No, you go for 70, and then you don't get anything less than 70.
Thank you. Let me just add one thing as well, that in negotiation with the people, you always start to be clear about the value of your brand, because what they may cancel with is that what they pay should cover the activation, if that makes sense. So in discussion activation contractually, have a clear understanding of the value of the brand or the federation, or whatever it may be, when you enter into discussion. That is different from the inclusion of the activation, if that makes sense. So the two are not blurred, that the payment for the value of your brand is not blurred in with the payment for activation, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you very much, guys. You were great. Thank you for paying attention. Bruno, you have an award. Applause.